The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Marcus Aurelius said that nearly 2,000 years ago, and my friends, it's still the hardest truth most people refuse to accept. We live in a world where everyone thinks you've got to clap back, text back, prove your worth, or somehow force someone to see what they lost. That's the lie. The real power isn't in chasing, it's in standing still. The real punishment isn't in words, it's in silence. And the sharpest weapon you'll ever carry is time itself. Now, hey folks, imagine this. You're the sun. You don't run around chasing planets, begging them to orbit you. You shine, and whether they circle you or drift away, it doesn't change your nature. But here's the twist. When they walk too far into the darkness, they'll eventually feel the cold. That's when the regret creeps in. That's when silence becomes louder than any argument you could have ever made. We've been trained to believe that if someone takes us for granted, we need to fight for our place, we need to explain, we need to show them our value. But let me break that lie for you right now. If someone can't see your worth when you're right in front of them, they won't suddenly see it because you beg. Chasing doesn't prove your value, it discounts it. It tells them, you were right to leave. I need you more than you need me. That's not love, that's slavery of the spirit. Think of silence as a mirror. When you go quiet, they're forced to face themselves without your constant reassurance, without your presence softening the edges of their loneliness. Time begins to stretch. Days feel different without your voice, your energy, your support. At first, they celebrate, thinking they're free. But as the days become weeks and the weeks become months, silence begins to eat at their confidence. It's like water dripping on stone, slow, steady, but impossible to ignore. And here's where it gets funny, folks. At first, they'll put on a show. I'm good, I'm happy, I'm thriving. Social media posts, fake laughter, new people, new distractions. But the truth? That's just the costume they wear to the masquerade of denial. Because when the lights go out, when the noise stops, when they're alone with themselves, that's when your silence becomes thunder in their chest. You see, the world tricks us into thinking noise equals power. But in Stoicism, silence equals control. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to chase. You don't have to play their games. All you have to do is let time do the heavy lifting, because time is undefeated, my friends. Time dismantles false confidence, time exposes illusions, and time turns the tables in ways revenge never could. And here's the real kicker. While they're busy trying to figure out if they made the right choice, you're not waiting. You're growing, you're thriving, you're becoming someone stronger than you were when they left. That's the part they never saw coming. They thought you'd crumble, but instead, you built. They thought you'd wait, but instead, you walked. They thought time would heal them, but time ended up breaking them. So, as we begin this journey together, remember this. You don't need revenge, you don't need noise, you don't need validation. You need silence, you need time, you need self-respect. And when you hold that line, my friends, regret will do the rest of the work for you. Affirm it right now. I choose silence. Write it in the comments below. Press that like button and subscribe so you never miss the truth bombs we're about to drop. Stay with me, because the longer they go without you, the more it hurts. And the longer you go without chasing, the freer you become. Number 1, the initial relief. They think they're fine without you. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. Marcus Aurelius said this. And folks, isn't it wild how so many think they've started living the moment they walk away? They call it freedom. They call it peace. But what they've really begun is the slow process of being broken down by time itself. My friends, let's hit this hard. Because when they first leave, they carry themselves like winners. They think the silence is their victory. They believe they've escaped. And in that moment, you might even fear that they're right. But let me show you what's really happening. Picture this. A bird flies out of its cage, chest puffed, wings spread, convinced it's heading straight into paradise. For a few days, it feels glorious. The wind in its feathers, the illusion of open skies. But soon the bird realizes it's not flying toward freedom. It's flying toward hunger, storms, and cold nights with no shelter. That's exactly how they feel when they first let you go. At first, the sky feels open. They say to themselves, "I'm better off. I don't need them. I've moved on." They post the highlight reels, tell their friends they're thriving, and convince themselves that you were just another chapter, not the whole book. And in those first days, you, on your end, wonder, did I matter at all? Were all those moments meaningless? Why do they look so free while I'm carrying the weight of this pain? That's the fear talking, my friends. The fear that their relief means your worth was never real. But let me break that lie right now. Their relief is not freedom, it's anesthesia. It's the numbness that follows an impulsive decision. It's not clarity, it's denial. You see, the human ego is a master illusionist. When they walk away, pride whispers, "You did the right thing. You're untouchable. Look at you, independent, strong, unstoppable." That voice is loud at first. So loud, it drowns out the truth. But here's the thing about illusions. They always fade. Like smoke in the wind. Like cheap perfume that lingers for a moment but can't mask the stench beneath. Their confidence doesn't last. It's not rooted in truth. It's rooted in avoidance. Ask yourself this. If they were truly at peace, why the performance? Why the sudden need to show the world how happy they are? Why the endless distractions, the louder laughter, the desperate reaching for noise? Folks, you already know the answer. People who are genuinely free don't need to announce it. They live it quietly. But people who are running from themselves, they're the ones who need the world to watch. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a man falling into icy water. At first, the shock numbs him. He feels nothing, maybe even thinks he's okay. But give it time. As the minutes pass, the numbness fades, and the pain sets in deeper than he ever imagined. That's exactly how their so-called freedom works. The initial numbness feels like relief, but time melts that illusion, and the cold, hard truth sets in. But why is it so difficult for them to admit it? Why do they cling so hard to this mask of being fine without you? Because admitting regret feels like death to the ego. To acknowledge they made the wrong choice means facing the fact that they threw away something valuable, something real. So instead, they double down. They magnify your flaws. They replay the arguments. They exaggerate your imperfections, all to convince themselves that letting you go was the smart move. But deep down, they know. Oh, they know. The battle has already begun, the war between ego and heart. This is where stoicism becomes your greatest ally, my friends, because while they're wrestling with denial, you don't have to lift a finger. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to prove your worth. You simply need to let silence do the teaching. Silence is the forge, silence is the mirror, and time is the hammer that cracks their false confidence piece by piece. And here's the truth you must carry. Their relief is temporary, their pride is fragile, their laughter is shallow. It's like a house built on sand. Looks strong for a moment until the tide of time sweeps in. And when it does, every brick of denial comes crashing down. And guess what? You don't need to knock it down. You just need to stand still. But I know what you're thinking. What if they never regret it? What if they never look back? What if they replace me and I'm forgotten? That's fear again. Fear is the mind's loudest liar. Here's what you must remember. People may replace bodies, but they can't replace souls. They can find company, but they can't replicate connection. They can fill their days with faces, but they can't recreate the depth you brought. And the longer they go without you, the clearer that becomes. So yes, at first, they will think they're fine. At first, they'll carry the smugness of someone who believes they made the right choice. But give it time, my friends. The mask always slips. The show always ends, the noise always fades, and when it does, silence screams louder than anything you could ever say. And here's where you rise. Instead of wasting energy chasing or proving, you invest that energy into yourself. You rebuild, you strengthen, you glow in ways you never did before. And that glow, that's the punishment they never saw coming. Because while they're sinking in the emptiness of their choices, you're standing taller, brighter, freer, and nothing hurts more than watching the person they thought would wait turn into someone they can't even reach anymore. So hold the line. Don't break the silence. Don't let their initial performance shake your faith in yourself. Remember the truth. The beginning of their relief is the beginning of their downfall. The more they pretend they're fine, the harder the crash when reality sets in. And when it does, you won't have to say a word. Affirm it with me right now, folks. Silence is my strength. Time is my ally. Self-respect is my shield. Write it in the comments below. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you will no longer measure your worth by someone else's denial. And stay with me, because what comes next, that's the stage they never see coming. Number 2, the subtle signs of emptiness begin. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca said that, and my friends, when someone walks away from you, the suffering they try to bury doesn't hit all at once. At first they imagine they've escaped, but reality isn't fooled. It waits. It stalks them in the quiet. It whispers in the cracks. Because here's the truth, emptiness doesn't slam into them like a storm in the beginning. No, it sneaks in like a shadow, showing up in small, almost invisible ways until it becomes impossible to ignore. Imagine this. They're out with friends, laughter filling the room, drinks in hand. For a moment, everything feels fine. But then a song plays, the one you both used to hum in the car, windows down, sun on your face, and suddenly, for 3 seconds, they're not in that room anymore. They're back with you, just a flicker, just a passing memory, but enough to make their smile falter, even if no one else notices. That's how emptiness begins, not with a bang, but with a whisper. At first, they brush it off. I don't miss them, they say to themselves. It's just a random thought. But the thought comes back again and again. Maybe it's a place you used to visit together. Maybe it's a phrase you used to say that someone else repeats. Maybe it's the way someone's eyes remind them of yours. It's nothing dramatic, just little cuts. Tiny reminders that what they lost wasn't just a person. It was a presence, a rhythm, a heartbeat that used to echo through their days without them even realizing it. Why does it happen this way? Because the mind is addicted to familiarity. It clings to what felt like home. Even if the ego is screaming, "We're fine." They can go out every night, fill their calendar with distractions, swipe through faces on their phone until their thumb aches, but none of it changes the truth. The silence between those distractions is getting louder. The noise doesn't comfort them the way it did at first. The laughter feels more forced. The conversations don't land as deep. And in the stillness, in the quiet corners of their day, your absence is like a missing note in a song they can't finish. They start noticing what's gone in ways they didn't expect. Their phone doesn't light up the way it used to. The jokes they want to share don't have a place to land. They wake up in the morning and realize the first voice they used to hear is missing. These aren't grand revelations. They're tiny voids, the kind you can almost ignore at first. But time makes those voids heavier. Time turns whispers into echoes, echoes into roars. And yet, they still won't admit it, not to themselves, not to anyone else. Their pride won't let them. Instead, they perform. They keep up the act. Post after post, laugh after laugh, mask after mask. They'll even double down on the story they tell themselves, "I'm better off. This is good for me. I don't miss them." But deep down, a quiet war has started. The ego fights to stay in control, but the heart knows better. The heart feels the emptiness growing like a slow fire they can't put out. Here's the lie they believe, that time will erase you, that the longer they go without you, the lighter they'll feel. But here's the stoic truth. Time doesn't erase, it reveals. It doesn't let them forget, it forces them to remember. Because the longer they go without you, the more they start to compare what they had with what they have now. And nothing measures up. The depth, the comfort, the ease of being truly known by someone, it's gone, and no distraction fills it. So, folks, while they're convincing themselves they're fine, while they're performing for the world, reality is dismantling their denial piece by piece. They scroll their phone late at night and almost type your name before stopping themselves. They hear a story and instinctively think, I have to tell them this, only to remember they can't. They look around a crowded room and feel utterly alone because the one person who made the crowd disappear isn't there anymore. That's emptiness. That's the shadow of regret creeping in. And this is where you must rise. This is where you must resist the urge to break the silence, to check if they're feeling it, to see if your absence is being noticed. Because the moment you reach out, the moment you break, you reset the cycle. You hand them the relief they crave. You give them proof that you're still waiting. And the lesson time is trying to teach them gets delayed. Don't rob them of their own awakening. Don't interfere with time's design. Instead, stand firm. Let the silence stretch. Let the absence deepen. Because here's the promise. The longer they go without you, the heavier it gets. And one day they won't just feel emptiness. They'll be consumed by it. Affirm it with me now. I will not break. My silence is power. Write it in the comments, my friends. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you're strong enough to let time do the work. And stay with me, because the next stage, that's when the storm really hits. That's when life without you stops feeling empty and starts feeling unbearable. Number 3, the realization. Life without you isn't as great as they thought. You may leave this life at any moment. Have this possibility in your mind in all that you do, say, and think. Marcus Aurelius said that. And folks, let's be real. When they walked away, they believed life without you would feel like a fresh start, a clean page, an open sky. They imagined it would be better, lighter, easier. They thought joy would come quickly, that freedom would taste sweet. But now, the undefeated teacher is revealing a crueler truth. Life without you isn't better, it's emptier. Imagine this, they're standing in front of a banquet table. At first glance, it looks abundant, plates stacked high, colors everywhere, endless choices. They think, yes, this is what I've been missing. But as they bite into the food, the taste doesn't satisfy. The fullness is fake. No matter how much they consume, they walk away still hungry. That's what their life feels like now. Busy, colorful, full of noise and faces, but hollow at the core. At first, they told themselves this was part of the process. It's normal to feel off, they whisper. It'll get better with time. But instead of healing, time exposes the emptiness. The new people don't fill the void. The conversations don't carry the same weight. The experiences don't bring the same joy. And what they once dismissed as nostalgia begins to feel like evidence. Evidence that walking away was not freedom, but the start of loneliness. You see, my friends, humans are wired to crave depth. They can chase surface-level thrills for a while, but eventually the high fades. And when it fades, they're forced to compare. Not because they want to, but because the mind naturally measures what is against what was. And every comparison cuts deeper. The way you laughed at their jokes without effort. The way your presence made silence comfortable, not awkward. The way you truly understood them in a world full of people who only skim the surface. That kind of connection can't be replaced. It can only be mourned. But why do they struggle so much at this stage? because pride won't let them admit it outright. They'll try to rationalize. I just need more time. I just need to try harder. They'll force themselves into new relationships, new distractions, chasing the same connection they once had with you. But no matter how hard they try, the truth stares them down. The spark isn't there, the depth isn't there, the comfort isn't there. And for the first time, the question creeps in. Did I make a mistake? Let me give you another metaphor. Imagine climbing a mountain, believing there's a breathtaking view waiting at the top. You push, you sweat, you struggle, convinced it'll be worth it. But when you finally reach the peak, all you see is fog, empty, lifeless fog. That's how they feel now. They believed walking away would elevate them, but instead of joy, they're standing in a fog of emptiness, haunted by what they left behind. And here's the hardest part for them. Regret doesn't just whisper, it starts to roar. They replay the reasons they told themselves for leaving, but those reasons don't hold up anymore. They seemed valid in the heat of emotion, in the intoxication of pride. But under the weight of reality, those reasons collapse. The justifications turn into excuses. The excuses turn into shame. Meanwhile, you're no longer where they left you. You've begun to adapt. While they are drowning in comparison, you've learned to breathe again. While they are stuck in fog, you've started to see the sun. And that contrast, folks, is what cuts them deepest, because it reveals a truth they never wanted to face. You needed them far less than they needed you. This is the moment they start to test the waters. Maybe they don't message yet, but they lurk. They check your social media. They ask mutual friends how you're doing. They want to see if you're as lost as they are. But instead of finding someone stuck, they see someone rising. And that terrifies them, because it means they weren't your anchor. They were your storm. And you finally stepped out of it. And this is where your power shines brightest. Because Stoicism teaches us you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't perform. You simply live, you grow, you thrive. And in doing so, you deliver the punishment they never anticipated. Not revenge, not anger, not even indifference. Just undeniable proof that your life is richer without them, and theirs is emptier without you. So hold steady, my friends. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you falter. Don't trade your growth for their temporary relief. Let them wrestle with their realization. Let them sit in the fog they created. Because the longer they go without you, the more undeniable the truth becomes. They didn't walk toward freedom. They walked away from the best thing they ever had. Affirm it with me right now. I am irreplaceable. My silence is power. My growth is proof. Write it in the comments below. Show them, show yourself, and show the world that you are no longer defined by someone else's illusions. And stay with me, because the next stage is when their pride begins to crumble, when the ego and the heart collide, and regret becomes their constant shadow. That's when the real unraveling begins. Number 4, regret creeps in, the ego versus the heart. A man who has committed a mistake and doesn't correct it is committing another mistake. Confucius said that, and my friends, this is the stage where mistakes become chains. Up until now, they've convinced themselves they're fine. They've brushed off the whispers of emptiness. They've doubled down on the lie that life is better without you. But now the cracks are too wide to ignore. The whispers have grown louder. And for the first time, regret is no longer just a shadow, it's a weight pressing on their chest. At this point, the battle begins. Ego versus heart, pride versus truth. The story they told themselves versus the reality they now live with. The ego is loud, stubborn, desperate. It screams, "You made the right choice. Don't back down. Don't admit weakness. Don't you dare regret this." But the heart whispers something softer, truer, harder to ignore. You had something real, and you threw it away. Let's break this down with a metaphor. Imagine a courtroom inside their mind. Ego sits at the judge's table, pounding the gavel, shouting orders. Pride is the lawyer, presenting arguments like, they weren't good enough, you deserve better, this is growth. And at first the jury of their thoughts nods along, but slowly evidence begins to pile up against them. The heart starts cross-examining. If you were happier without them, then why do you feel this ache at night? If you didn't need them, why do their memories creep into your dreams? If life is so much better, why do you keep checking for signs of their presence? And with every question, the ego's case weakens. They'll fight it. They'll try to rationalize. They'll replay the arguments. They'll magnify your flaws. They'll create narratives where you were the problem. But here's the truth. They can only hold up that facade for so long. Because deep down, the evidence is undeniable. Their life without you is not better. It's emptier, it's colder, it's lonelier, and that's when regret slithers in, coiling around their heart. Why is this stage so brutal for them? Because it demands honesty. It demands facing the fact that they chose wrong, that they underestimated your worth, that they let their pride dictate a decision their soul never wanted. And for most people, admitting that is harder than carrying the weight of the regret itself. So instead, they do what humans do best. They distract, they deny, they delay. They tell themselves, I'll get over it. I just need more time. But time isn't helping them anymore. Time is hurting them. Think of it like this. Imagine someone ignoring a wound. At first it stings, but they cover it up, pretending it doesn't exist. But over days and weeks the wound festers, the infection spreads, it consumes them until the pain can't be ignored. That's what regret does. It festers, it grows, and eventually it breaks through every wall of denial they've built. And here's where jealousy starts to creep in. They begin to wonder about you, not casually, desperately. They stalk your socials in secret. They ask mutual friends how you're doing. They look for proof that you still think about them. And when they find nothing, no hints, no breadcrumbs, no signs of waiting, it drives the knife deeper. Because while they are drowning in regret, you're rising in silence. And nothing terrifies them more than realizing you may no longer care. But here's where stoicism empowers you, my friends. You don't need to gloat. You don't need to rub it in. You don't need to make them see their mistake. That's ego. Your role is to detach, to hold your line, to let regret do the teaching, because regret, left unchecked, becomes their worst punishment. Not your anger, not your revenge, not your words, just the quiet absence of your presence. And what about you? How do you rise while they're falling into this pit? By refusing to break silence for their comfort, by refusing to hand them the relief of knowing you still care. Because the second you reach out, you give them oxygen. And right now, their ego needs to suffocate, their pride needs to collapse, their illusions need to shatter. That's the only way they'll learn what you've known all along, that your value was never negotiable. So here's the dagger truth. Regret is now their companion. It follows them into conversations. It slips into their victories. It haunts them in the quiet hours of the night. And the longer they go without you, the heavier it grows. They may try to hide it. They may still perform happiness. But inside, the battle is raging. And this time, the heart is winning. Affirm this with me now. I will not save them from their regret. My silence is their mirror. My strength is my proof. Write it in the comments, my friends. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are strong enough to let time break illusions and let regret become their teacher. And stay with me, because what comes next is even darker. The longer they resist, the more time stops healing and starts punishing. That's when time itself turns into their worst enemy. Number 5. Time becomes their worst enemy. Time discovers truth. Seneca wrote those words, and my friends, this is the stage where truth can no longer be hidden. Up until now, they've told themselves they were fine. They've convinced themselves the emptiness was normal. They've battled with regret, but still clung to the hope that it would fade. But now, time stops being their ally. It stops being something that soothes. Time turns against them. Every day that passes without you isn't a step toward healing. It's a hammer striking the walls of their denial. Picture this. At first, they thought they could outrun the silence, fill their calendar, drown their thoughts, find 1,000 ways to escape, but running has limits. Sooner or later, their legs get tired, their lungs burn, and time, patient, steady, merciless, catches up to them. That's what this stage feels like. The days stretch, the nights feel longer, and suddenly, the silence they once celebrated becomes unbearable. They wake up and instinctively reach for their phone. No message from you. They fall asleep, but the thoughts keep circling. What if they don't need me anymore? What if I waited too long? They go through their day, achieving small wins, having casual conversations, but none of it feels whole. Every little success feels muted because the one person they want to share it with isn't there anymore. And with each passing week, that absence weighs heavier. Why does time do this? Because time doesn't erase, it amplifies. Think of an echo in a canyon. At first, the sound is faint, but as it bounces back and forth, it grows sharper, louder, impossible to ignore. That's what time is doing to them now. It takes the faint whispers of regret and turns them into thunder. This is where fear begins to take over. In the early stages, they thought they had control. They believed you'd always be there in the background, waiting, hoping, still tied to their memory. But the longer the silence stretches, the more they realize that might not be true. And that thought terrifies them. Because now it's no longer about missing you, it's about the horrifying possibility that you don't miss them, that you've adapted, that you've moved on, that your silence isn't weakness, it's freedom. So they start grasping. They overanalyze your posts. They search for hidden meanings in your words, your pictures, your updates. They ask questions through mutual friends. They might even throw small pebbles into your world, liking an old post, sending a vague message, testing the waters. Not because they're strong, but because they're desperate. Because time has taken away the one thing their ego always depended on, the illusion of control. And here's where you must remember your strength. This is the moment where many people stumble. They see signs that the other person is cracking and they rush in, thinking, now's my chance to show them, now's my chance to fix it. But the second you break silence, the second you give them what they're starving for, you hand them relief. And all the work time has done, gone, reset. The silence that was punishing them becomes proof that you were waiting, and their ego gets fed again. Don't make that mistake, my friends. Stoicism teaches us that strength is in restraint. You don't punish them with anger. You don't gloat. You don't chase. You simply allow time to keep pressing its weight onto their chest. Because what they're experiencing now isn't your doing. It's their own choice coming back to haunt them. Imagine someone planting seeds of thorn bushes in a garden. At first, the thorns are small, easy to ignore. But given enough time, the bushes grow, the thorns spread, and soon they can't walk through their own garden without bleeding. That's what's happening to them. They planted this when they walked away. Now time is forcing them to walk through it. Every day more cuts, every day more pain. And the worst part for them? Even if they decide to reach out, they don't know who you are anymore. They don't know what version of you they'll find. Because while they've been stuck in cycles of regret, you've been moving forward. You've been healing, growing, becoming. You are not the person they left behind. And that thought, more than anything else, destroys them. This is why time becomes their worst enemy. Because time is proof. Proof that you don't need them. Proof that your life goes on without them. Proof that what they lost wasn't a phase, but something permanent. Every sunrise they see without you becomes another reminder that the clock isn't working in their favor anymore. It's ticking against them. So let them wrestle, let them struggle, let them feel every second of the silence they once celebrated, because the more time passes, the more they realize they didn't just lose you for a moment. They may have lost you forever. Affirm it with me right now. I will not rush. Time is my ally. Silence is my strength. Write it in the comments, my friends. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are unshakable. And stay with me, because the next stage is the most devastating of all. The stage where silence stops being absent and becomes punishment. The stage where they must watch you thrive without them. Number 6. The silent punishment. Watching you thrive without them. Living well is the best revenge. That's not just a saying. It's a dagger of truth. Because at this stage, my friends, the silence isn't just absence anymore. It's punishment. And it's not a punishment you have to deliver with anger, with bitterness, or with revenge. It's a punishment born from your growth, your glow, your ability to rise higher without them. While they're drowning in regret and fear, you're building, you're thriving, you're shining. And nothing cuts deeper than realizing they lost someone who doesn't just survive without them, they flourish. Picture this. They scroll through their phone late at night, that hollow ache in their chest gnawing at them. They tap on your profile, expecting to find someone still waiting, still hurting, still stuck. But instead, they see something else. A smile that doesn't look forced, a life that looks fuller, energy that looks lighter. And that's when the truth hits them. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was transformation. You didn't just wait for them, you grew past them. At first, they'll deny it. It's fake, they tell themselves. They're just pretending to be happy. They're putting on a show for me. But here's the difference, folks. Real happiness doesn't need to scream. Real growth doesn't need to perform. And the more they watch, the harder it is for them to hold on to that lie. Because your glow doesn't look staged. Your laughter doesn't sound hollow. Your energy doesn't feel like a performance. It feels real. And that reality destroys them. You see, when they left, they carried an unspoken assumption that you would always be there if they came back. They believed you would crumble, stall, pause your life while they figured things out. They believed their absence would hurt you more than it hurt them. But silence and time flipped the script. Instead of crumbling, you rebuilt. Instead of stalling, you accelerated. Instead of waiting, you walked forward. And now the punishment is this. They no longer recognize you. The version of you they thought they could return to no longer exists. Let's break it with a metaphor. Imagine someone walking away from a house. They think, it'll always be here if I want to return. But when they finally do, the house is gone. In its place stands a castle. Stronger, bigger, more beautiful than anything they ever dreamed of. But it's not theirs anymore. They gave up their key. They can't walk in. They can only stand outside the gates, haunted by what they lost. That's what watching you thrive feels like for them. And here's the cruel twist. Your thriving doesn't just remind them of what they lost. It reminds them of what they'll never have again. Because it's not just about you being happy. It's about you becoming untouchable. They see that you're no longer defined by them. Your joy doesn't need their approval. Your strength doesn't need their validation. Your life no longer orbits their presence. And for someone who once believed they were in control, that loss of power is unbearable. This stage also exposes their ego's deepest fear, indifference. They could handle your anger. They could even handle your sadness. But indifference? That's a death sentence to their pride. Because it means they don't even occupy space in your mind anymore. They're no longer a chapter you're stuck in. They're just a footnote in your story of becoming. And nothing hurts worse than realizing that the person you thought would always care no longer cares at all. And here's what's truly funny, folks. They thought their punishment would be your suffering. They thought they'd leave you broken, waiting, lost without them. But reality flipped it. Now they're the ones broken, watching from the sidelines as you become someone greater than they ever imagined. And every day you thrive without them, their punishment grows heavier. This is where stoicism shines brightest, because you don't need to do anything extra. You don't need to craft posts to make them jealous. You don't need to perform your growth. Real growth is quiet, steady, undeniable. It doesn't scream, it radiates. And the people who need to feel it will feel it without you trying. That's the beauty of the silent punishment. It delivers itself. So let them watch, let them wonder, let them drown in the emptiness of their own choices while you rise in the fullness of yours. Don't gloat, don't perform, don't break your silence for their comfort. Just keep building, keep glowing, keep becoming. Because every step forward you take is another reminder that they didn't just lose you, they lost the future they could have had with you. Affirm this with me right now. My growth is my revenge. My silence is my strength. My life is my proof. Write it in the comments, my friends. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you no longer live to be seen. You live to thrive. And stay with me, because the next stage is the breaking point, the moment they can no longer deny their pain, the moment their pride finally cracks under the weight of truth. That's the collapse they never saw coming. Number 7, the breaking point, when they finally acknowledge their pain. You may delay, but time will not. Benjamin Franklin's words, and my friends, they hit hardest here, because this is the stage they thought would never come. They were certain they'd be fine, certain they'd outrun regret, certain time would heal the wound of losing you. But instead, time has cornered them. Time has stripped away their illusions, shattered their defenses, and forced them into the moment they swore they'd never face, the breaking point. At this point, denial no longer works, distractions no longer satisfy. The mask of confidence they wore so proudly is slipping off, and beneath it lies raw, undeniable truth. They are in pain. And worse than that, they finally know they created it. Picture this. They're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house is quiet. The phone is silent. The friends they distracted themselves with aren't around. The noise has faded, and for the first time, they are alone with nothing but themselves. And in that silence, it hits them like a wave crashing against stone. I miss them. I need them. I made a mistake. They try to fight it, try to shove the thought away, but it keeps coming back stronger. The truth has finally broken through. Why is this stage so devastating? Because it's no longer about what they feel, it's about what it means. Missing you isn't just longing for a person. It's longing for the life they destroyed, the connection they squandered, the love they dismissed. Every memory now feels like a reminder of their own arrogance. Every good thing you brought into their life is now a sharp reminder of what they threw away. And that regret doesn't sit quietly. It gnaws at them every hour, every day. They start to panic. They test the waters. Maybe they send a casual message, something vague like, "Hey, how have you been?" Pretending it's harmless, pretending it's just curiosity. But the reality is, they're desperate. Desperate to know if they still matter. Desperate to know if the door they closed is still cracked open. And when you don't respond the way they hope, or worse, when you don't respond at all, that panic intensifies. They might try again, more directly this time. Maybe they reach out through mutual friends. Maybe they comment on something you've posted just to remind you they exist. Maybe they even show up in places they think you'll be, hoping to spark some kind of reconnection. But here's the dagger truth, my friends. The version of you that would have welcomed them back doesn't exist anymore. They didn't just lose you. They lost the right to the old version of you. This is when desperation consumes them. The regret is no longer a passing ache. It's a constant storm. It follows them to work, to bed, into conversations, into every quiet moment. They thought they were in control of this story, that they could leave and return whenever they wanted, but now they see the truth. The power was never theirs. It was always yours. Because you didn't wait. You didn't stall. You didn't collapse under the weight of silence. You rose. You healed. You grew. And that's what breaks them completely. The realization that you don't just survive without them, you thrive. That you don't just move on, you become untouchable. And the punishment is not your anger, not your bitterness, not your revenge. The punishment is your silence, your glow, your indifference. The punishment is the fact that they can't go back in time and undo what they did. The punishment is knowing that what they lost is gone forever. This, my friends, is the final stage of their suffering. This is the collapse of pride, the crumbling of ego, the moment they finally see the truth they've been running from all along. They needed you far more than you ever needed them. And now they'll carry that regret for the rest of their lives. And you don't need to lift a finger. You don't need to prove, chase, or explain. You just need to hold the line, because time has already done the work. Time has already broken them. So here's how I want to close this. If you've felt this truth, if you've seen this pattern in your own life, if you know deep down that your silence is your greatest strength, then affirm it right now. I choose silence. I choose strength. I choose me. Write it in the comments below. Let the world know you will never again measure your worth by someone else's blindness. And if this message has given you clarity, power, and peace, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Because what we're building here isn't just content. It's a movement of people who are done chasing, done begging, and ready to rise. Stay strong, my friends. Remember this: the longer they go without you, the more it hurts. And the longer you go without chasing, the freer you become.